Property now. If you've been desperate to buy or sell a home, or you're worried about finding a home to rent, then for this hour you have the chance to listen to our expert, Henry Pryor, and what he has to say. The government announced earlier this week that estate agents could open up again after the housing sector has effectively frozen during the coronavirus pandemic. Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick says that there will be strict safeguards, however.
Viewings should happen virtually. When viewings do happen in person, all internal doors should be opened where possible. The current occupier should vacate the property for the duration of the visit, going out for their daily exercise, going out to the shops or standing in the garden if that's possible.
OK, so that's the Housing Secretary, Robert Jenrick. Let's talk to Henry now. Henry Pryor. Morning, Henry. How are you?
Steve, good afternoon. I'm very well indeed, thank you. Thank you to you and to those colleagues of yours twiddling the knobs beside you for keeping us informed and entertained through this extraordinary time.
Hey.
It's been a privilege to be able to listen to you, and thank you so much.
Bless you. That's very, very kind of you. Very nice indeed. Thank you. We're not saving lives, but we're playing a few tunes and asking some questions. But
and keeping us sane. You're keeping us sane, and it's really important for all of us in our part of the world. We've all faced some extraordinary times, and trying to make sure we keep that balance between the seriousness of the situation of what's going on and the balance of that life and how we're living and who we're talking to, bearing in mind we can't all go out and do things. The BBC has kept us all well informed and entertained. Thank you.
Very nice of you to say. Thank you very much, Henry. Let's talk about housing. Let's talk about first of all estate agents. I was going to say how's their business been, but their business has been non-existent, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the housing market has been frozen for 8 weeks. Estate agents and letting agents have not eaten for 8 weeks, commercially that is. Their offices have been shut. They have not been able to show houses for sale or to rent. They have been able to do things from a distance, and many have been quite imaginative and innovative. We've learned, as we have about all parts of society and of commerce, new words, new phrases. Virtual viewings is one of the big buzzwords that we're all trying to get our heads around. As we heard from that clip you played a moment ago, the Secretary of State for Housing is telling people that a virtual viewing, watching a movie online or on your phone or on your tablet before you book a physical viewing or inspection, is the way he wants to see things going. And it is incredibly important. Many, many listeners, Steve, have been in touch already, and I'm sure listening this afternoon are thinking, what on earth is going on? I can't go and see my mum or my dad. I can't go and visit my friends. I can't go and hug my grandchildren. And yet apparently I can have a complete stranger wandering around my home. What is going on? And it is really important that we try and explain to people what the government's thinking is when they've basically opened up the housing market again. It's not specifically so that estate agents can once again order their 2021 Mercedes. It is specifically because we are, as we talk frequently on the station about the housing crisis, and we've had 2 months of people being unable to move home. You have to think about the number of people who let. Over 4 million homes in this country are rented. They are on what are called assured short-hold tenancies. That means they come up for review and for renewal every 12 months. So we've had 2 months of worth of homes that would have otherwise either had leases renewed or that people would have moved in or out of. Added to that, we've got an awful lot of people who exchanged contracts on the sale or purchase of their property with a completion that they thought was going to be able to take place perhaps in 3 or 4 or 5 months' time, and are legally obliged to complete on that transaction. Completions obviously stop the wriggle room that would otherwise allow people to show some common sense and postpone their move. So there's an awful lot of people who would like to move, in addition to an awful lot of people who have to move. And that is why the Secretary of State in particular and the government as a whole has decided that it is time to under very strict criteria, reopen the housing market to a degree, pull the door ajar and let some transactions proceed.
It was interesting that you brought that subject out, because I was going to talk about it, because there was even jokes on social media of saying, right, well, I'm going to put my house on the market, and the first people that are going to come and view it is my mum and dad, because that seemed to be the only way that they could get to see them in the same place.
We're all thinking, what on earth is going on? It's is buying and selling a house really that important when we think about all the other things that are going on in the world at the moment? And the answer is, it's not specifically about people being able to buy and sell. It's not about business. It's about lives. It's about people who are stuck in homes that they want to get out or need to get out of in some cases, where legal agreements that were never designed to take account of what we're all still going through have precluded that. And it is essential that they are able to do that under very strict guidelines. And it is, and it's really important, Steve, that we remind people, like so much of what we're going to experience as we come out of lockdown, much, much harder to come out than it was to go in, we're going to have to get, and the government is trying to get, a balance. There is no right or wrong. It's not okay to put estate agents' health and in some cases lives at risk by telling them they've got to go round strangers' houses. It's not necessarily something that we're saying is worth more or less than, for example, the health and well-being of a key frontline National Health Service worker. It's about the practicalities of allowing life to go on to a degree, and for people to be able to contain and continue to have some semblance of normality and get on with their lives.
It's all very well, Robert Jenrick saying, look online, take the video tour before you go and actually physically visit a property to view. But at the end of the day, and it's one of my my guilty little pleasures in life is when I'm in the loo, is I look at houses.
What's coming?
It's only when I'm on the loo, I like to look through houses that are on the market where I live, and where I'm from originally, and places like that, and seeing what's around and what have you. But there is absolutely nothing that compares to walking into a property and you know immediately whether or not you love it and you want to buy it straight away, or it's not for you, don't you? You get that gut feeling straight away.
Well, you couldn't be more right. We are a nation who are obsessed, seemingly, with homes and house prices. It is the subject of dinner party conversation in some homes up and down our part of the country, in bars and pubs, and trying to convey that magical feeling that lifts the spirits as you walk across the threshold. That reason why estate agents so cunningly waft the smell of freshly brewed coffee or freshly baked bread up our nostrils when we're going round to see something is because of that emotional connection. We are not talking about people's purchase of a retail warehouse outside Canterbury. We're not talking about a bland commercial shop on the high street. We're talking about where people live, where they make memories, where they meet people, they entertain, they form relationships, and they bring up their families, their kids, and it's a really important part of everybody's lives. But it is a fundamentally important part, and it's essential that people understand that if you want to try and find somewhere else to live, for whatever reason, you may be going through what the estate agents refer to unattractively as the 3 Ds: death, debt and divorce, all of which tragically will, I'm sure, sadly be up as a result of what we've all been experiencing. But if you do want to do this, then you need to take some precautions. The first thing, as the Secretary of State has said, is before you go and risk yours and other people's health, check online if you've got access to the internet, as many people do have these days, and save yourself the trouble and everybody else the trouble of a physical viewing by having a look not just at still photographs as we might do on the big property portals while we're sitting in the smallest room in the house, Steve, but also by looking at moving pictures and try and see whether actually it's the sort of thing that really is going to help us. And it's one of those things that, again, you have to remember, if you're a buyer or a tenant, remember that a virtual tour of a property, a movie that's been made of a house, has been made by marketeers, people who want to sell it to you. So you need to think to yourself, just as we do when we look at still photographs, is there a picture of Dungeness Power Station just out of shot on the right-hand side? Or what's behind the photographer as you're doing that virtual tour, that with the wonderful music laying over the top of it? You don't get the smell of the freshly baked bread, but is there something perhaps smelling a little worse that you can't pick up because it's only online, it's not smell-o-vision?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Good. Henry, we're going to take a little break from Make a Difference.